I am incredibly excited today that we have with us the absolutely fabulous and highly gorgeous Dr. Emma Guzman. She is a dedicated general dentist practicing in New York City. Her journey in dentistry has been shaped by a commitment to community building, wellness, public speaking, service, and mentorship. Dr. Guzman is passionate about helping fellow healthcare professionals find enjoyment in their lives by prioritizing mental and physical health for career fulfillment and longevity. And I am very honored to say that she is also going to be a speaker at the upcoming Dental Culture Conference in February 2025. Welcome, Dr. Emma.
Thank you for having me. Thank you for spending your time with me. And I'm excited to get this talk going.
Yes, it's such a pleasure to have you. You've been out and about, and I know you just got back from Brown Girl RDH. How was that?
Yes.
Shout out to Martell, by the way, fabulous organization and conferences that she has. But how was the event?
It was fabulous. It was fabulous. It was such a beautiful event. And I love the messaging. The focus of day two. So, day one, there was clinical aspects for the hygienist. And the focus on day two was really self care and taking care of yourself. There was such a wide range of ages in terms of providers. There were dental hygiene students there, and there were hygienists who've been practicing for 30, 40 years. And the messaging was so different than the messaging that I got coming up. And that was a beautiful thing. They were telling these babies to be authentic. And I love that. I absolutely love that. They were telling them to be themselves. Show up as yourself when you're going to jobs. Because if you don't, you're going to burn out. You're going to be unhappy. I heard so many stories of the experienced providers that were talking about the first 10, 15 years of their career. They were different people when they went to work. And that led to burnout, being unhappy, not being fulfilled in the career, thinking that you don't even like dentistry because you can't be your true self. And then when you finally fall into that, you're just like, wow, I do love dentistry, right? I was just stuck being someone else. And I love that that was the messaging that they got, because I would say personally, I did not receive that message. I remember, when we were applying to colleges and then applying to dental school, it's like, clean up your page. Don't act a certain way. Ooh, can my hair be in braids for this interview? I just got my braids done last week. And I would take my braids out and make sure my hair is straight for an interview. Can I have bedazzled nails? When I'm working? No. They have to be clean. They have to be prepped. They have to be proper. You have to present yourself in a certain way. And now I'm able to be authentic. I'm 100% authentic. I show up as myself, but I did have to tame who I was initially in my career because I felt like I had to. And it was just a beautiful message that they were sending to our fellow brown girls. And it was such a nice conference.
Oh, that is such a beautiful thing. I love that. There's nothing more authentic than showing up as yourself. And I think that's honestly what everybody would want anyway. I'm glad we are now moving towards this. Like, I'd rather know the full truth of who I'm getting if I'm doing an interview with someone, or if I'm going somewhere to do an interview and be interviewed. I want them to know who I am and who's showing up every day. I don't want to have to put on a mask of someone who I'm not. I don't want to have to take out my braids, because you know how long it takes to put all that in? We're not taking those out, not for no interview. That was like an instant hard stop. Like, no. But I love that. I love that messaging. And that's kind of a lot of what you do now with your mentorship, is that you're
Yes.
working with people who are new grads and people who are looking to even get to the point where they can graduate, people who are in dental school and hoping to come out and to have long careers, because this is something that we all strive for, but the burnout can be very real. So yeah, authenticity is key, absolutely key. So what's a big part of what you're doing now in your mentorship that you feel most passionate about?
So I am a mentor with the Diversity in Dentistry Mentorship programs. That's head by Dr. Layla Highshaw, and she is an absolute boss. And I did not see her at Brown Girl RDH, but I did see her at SmileCon, which I was at 2 weeks ago. I spoke there, and then she was getting awarded at SmileCon, and I got to spend some time with her. But in terms of the mentorship that I do, I have two mentees, but outside of that, I have many mentees. You know, the people in my DMs and my emails, I'm helping someone out here and there. But formally, I have two mentees, and they're trying to get into dental school. So they're at different levels in the terms of someone already took their DAT, they have their recommendation letter, they have, their personal statement, and I'm editing their personal statement for them, telling them what activity they need to do to make their application stronger. And then you have the people that are just like, I'm not sure if I really want to do this. Do I want to commit this amount of years? And just talking through that, because I'm not here to tell you to be a dentist. I'm here to guide you to live the best life that you could live. And that may not be in dentistry. That may be in something else. We're having discussions of, should I go into hygiene instead? Should I go into completely different fields? Should I even be in healthcare? Because sometimes healthcare is rough, right? So the way I like to mentor is to guide you in the right direction, but never tell you what to do. When it comes to the people who are certain about what they do, then I'm gonna give you homework and I'm gonna tell you what to do, right? I'm gonna say, okay, the next time we meet, I need the first draft of your personal statement. You need to go into the application cycle, even though it doesn't open until June. You could go into the app and see what that app looked like. Have all those questions ready. Have it in a document, because that's what I did, right? We don't have to reinvent the wheel. If you did something that was successful, pass that down. We have to lift as we climb, especially in this field where 3.8% of us are Black.
Yeah.
That's not a big number. That is not a big number. And especially in our individual homes, towns, cities, you don't see a lot of us. Even living in New York City, I could go weeks without seeing a Black dentist. The only reason why I see them regularly is because they're my friends, right? And I'm hanging out with them. But if it wasn't for that, I wouldn't see one. I grew up in New York City and I never saw a Black dentist.
Wow.
Never, until I was intentional about seeking out Black providers. It wasn't until I was shadowing an undergrad where I was like, oh, can I see a Black dentist? I didn't see a Black dentist for the first time till I was 19 years old.
Wow.
You know what I mean? So it's important that we're seen. So people coming up or thinking about being in the field know that it's possible. Because we know that we're pushed into certain fields. You could be an assistant.
Yeah.
Right? Because even hygiene school, ooh, that may be too hard for you as well.
It's trauma. So hygiene school is all about trauma.
Right? So they're not even dentists. You're a dentist? Even when I say I'm a dentist, people are like, hygienist? Assistant? I'm like, I know I said dentist.
They're like, you forgot a word. You said
you
den
can't even
something.
Fathom it. You can't even fathom it. That's why it's so important when I mentor these students to say, hey, you could do whatever you want to do as long as you want to do it. Because you have to want to do this, because this is not easy.
Yes. And that representation is really important. But it kind of makes me curious as to why you decided to become a dentist. Because I know I went to hygiene school. Well, I don't have a great story about why I went to hygiene school, but I had a Black hygienist. So I knew it was a possibility for me. I never saw a Black dentist. I don't even think the thought of dentistry came ever into my mind.
Right.
But I knew I could be a hygienist because I saw a Black hygienist. Mm-hmm. And so what exactly led you down the path if that's something you hadn't even seen or experienced until you were 19?
So my story is an interesting one in the sense of I don't feel like my story is very interesting because a dentist came to career day when I was in 4th grade. He spoke about dentistry. So I went to the library because, back then we didn't have computers in the houses. We didn't have phones. So I went to the library. I opened up the encyclopedia. I looked up dentistry and I said, okay, that's what I'm going to do.
Wow.
That's literally my story. So I was like, when I was writing my personal statement, I was like, this is not exciting. Like, this is not exciting. Like, it's literally cut and dry. Like, someone spoke about dentistry, and I was like, okay. And I decided that at 8, 9 years old, yes, that's what I'm going to do.
I love that.
And, everyone's just like, no, but that's amazing because you decided that at 9 years old and stuck to it. And I was like, oh, I guess. But I didn't know much, right? I didn't know any dentists that were black or brown. My dentist was an older white man. He was great. It was lovely. I loved going to the dentist. I like candy. I had a lot of cavities when I was in middle school, right? But I still enjoyed going to the dentist. I would love my face being numb. I was such a weirdo. So I would go to the dentist and I would love hearing him and the hygienist speak about their lives during the procedure. It was great. I always had a great experience going to the dentist. But even so, I don't know if I even told him I wanted to be a dentist.
Oh.
Yeah, I don't think I did. I just enjoyed my experiences. I know, okay, I have to get good grades. So that was my main focus. Get good grades, middle school. Okay, high school, get good grades so you could get into a college so you could be a bio major. And that's all I knew. There was no more extent to that. And then when I got to undergrad and I was in the C-STEP program, which is the Collegiate Science and Technology Entry Program, which is specifically for underserved groups who want to go into the STEM fields. Mm-hmm. When I was there, that's when they were just like, have you shadowed? Have you volunteered? Have you done this? I'm like, what's that? What's shadow? And then that's when they finally got me together and was like, you got to do all these things if you plan on applying to professional school. So I was blessed that I met some amazing people, Makisha Brown, Christopher Fernando. I met some amazing people at the University at Albany that really steered me in the right direction. I did research, volunteering, shadowing. Once you told me what I needed to do, I was in it full force because it's way more than just getting good grades, which I always did, right? I did really well, but I didn't have anything else because I didn't know, right? Which is also why mentorship is important, because a lot of times they just don't know. You don't know what to do because you don't see anyone else doing it. And it wasn't until I was intentional, because the people in C-STEP were telling me to do it in Project Excel. They're just like, you need to shadow dentists. I'm like, okay, do we have any Black or Latino ones I could shadow? And then that's the first time I met a Black dentist. That was the first time I met a Latino dentist, because they connected me with those people.
Wow. I love that. I love that. You just very lightly mentioned it at the end there, and I don't want to go over the fact that you are a Black Latina. Yes. I would love to hear about your culture, you as a Guatemalan woman. Like, what is culture for you?
Ooh, that's deep. Okay. So, obviously, you can see my skin color, right? I'm Black. But my family is from Guatemala. And every summer I spent in Guatemala. We speak Spanish at home. We listen to salsa, merengue, bachata. We eat rice and beans. We eat tortilla. So culturally, we have that Latino culture very much so. But also on the flip side of that, we're also listening to calypso. We're listening to reggae. My dad's favorite artist was Bob Marley. All my uncles have dreads, so it was very much, and I never saw it as weird, right? Because especially growing up as a child, you're with your cousins, you're with your aunts, you're with your uncles, you're always with family, and you see that. It's not until, you get older and you're in school and you're telling people about where you're from, and they're like, you speak Spanish? You're Black. You're Guatemalan? You too tall, And it's just like, that's honestly, right? And then that's when you really start noticing, like, oh, there's differences. Like, everyone in Guatemala don't look like me. No, they don't. Like, the aesthetic is very different. It's more indigenous, and the Black people are on the coast. And that's specifically because what we originally are, ethnically, we're Garifuna. I don't know if you've ever heard of that ethnic group, but we're originally from St. Vincent. So the group was originally from St. Vincent, and that was a mixture of the indigenous people of St. Vincent, the Arawak and the Kalingos, mixed with the Africans. And then after wars with the French and the British and all these things, we were exiled to Central America. So that's why we ended up in Belize, Guatemala, Honduras, Nicaragua, and now we speak Spanish. But ethnically, I'm Garifuna, right? That's why we're Black. But we speak Spanish because that's where we landed, right? So the culture is very rich, but in terms of my career, it has made it very interesting. In dental school, when I'm the only Black person in my class, and I'm one of the 3 Latinos in my class, right? I'm getting the Black patients and I'm getting the Latino patients, right? Because we have a big population in Buffalo of patients who didn't speak English. So, it was the benefit that I spoke Spanish. So I was able to speak Spanish with my patients, and I got more patients because of that, because I was able to actually communicate with them. And then also, I'm also a Black provider, right? So I have those 2 different spaces that I'm able to connect differently with patients, which is super important.
I love that. I love that. Okay. Beautiful culture. I love the little bit of history you threw in there. Just as like an aside, this has nothing to do with anything else. But as soon as you said St. Vincent, my ears perked up because my mother and my whole maternal side of the family is from SVG, St. Vincent and the Grenadines. So it was like, oh, look, we might be related somewhere like way back in the lines.
Look, and it's so crazy how that portion of history was essentially erased.
Yes.
Right? Because most people from St. Vincent don't even know what Garifuna people are.
They don't know.
Most Caribbeans don't know what Garifuna people are, especially when I'm like, oh, I'm Caribbean. And they're just like, aren't you Latina? Like, aren't you in Central America? I'm like, well, if we look at a map,
right,
the coastal portion, that's the Caribbean Sea. We're Caribbean, right? If you look at our food, you look at our music, our culture, it's very Caribbean. Similar. Yeah. But I feel like that separation, especially because we speak Spanish, we're not really considered Caribbean.
It's all good. I think we've evolved, and I think a lot of those countries are adapted in Central America. And like Belize is considered Caribbean.
Right, because they speak English. So that's the difference. That's the difference. Because I'm like, what's the difference? Belize shares the border with Guatemala. Like, what's the difference? Right? That you could, if you talk about Caribbean flags, Caribbean culture, they'll include Belizeans, right? And now they're starting to include people from Honduras as well. So I'm starting to see that more because the population in Honduras of Garifuna people is way bigger, because that's where we originally went. And then from Honduras, that's when we spread to Belize, Guatemala, and Nicaragua.
Okay. Yeah. I love that. A little bit of history.
Yes.
Okay. I don't want to deviate too far off of where we were supposed to be, though. So we're going to take our truck and we're going to turn it back on.
Take it back.
When did wellness become a part of your journey, and how does that contribute to living joyfully and being able to practice in your passion in dentistry?
So wellness actually came into my journey recently. I would say I always enjoyed working out. I always was into fitness. I always danced. I played, I was a cheerleader in high school. I was always a part of a dance team. I worked out and was on a dance team in undergrad. Even in dental school, I worked out, while watching the Food Network on the treadmill, but don't judge me. So I always have been about fitness, but wellness is way more than that, right? Mm-hmm. That's incorporating your mental health. That's incorporating your nutrition. So being Latino, being Black, there's some foods that we eat that isn't the best for us in terms of portion size. Right. Not in terms of the food we eat. It's in terms of portion size. And then we can have a whole nother conversation about our portion size, because there is a cultural and socioeconomic reason why half of our plate is rice, right? If we can go back to the slave days, but this is not what we're talking about today. So I'll digress from that. So I never really paid attention to how I ate. It was more so I like to work out, and I was young and my metabolism was in my favor. So it wasn't until I was in dental school where I really started to gain a lot of weight from the stress the stress, the feeling alone
Mm.
because of the difference, the microaggressions. Dental school was real. I went to the University at Buffalo. I got an amazing education, but being the only Black person in your class was something that I would have never imagined. And I do not wish that experience upon other people. I remember being at orientation. I got there maybe 30 minutes early, and I'm looking around. I'm like, okay, 15 minutes, 10 minutes. It's almost 5 minutes till orientation starts. And I'm like, not these Black people being late. How you gonna do CP time for dental school? And then it was 9 a.m. and they said, welcome, class of 2017. And that's when it hit me. I was like, I'm the only Black person in my class. Now, I grew up in a predominantly white neighborhood. I went to a predominantly white institution for undergrad, but I never felt like the minority until that moment. And it was a lot of pressure for me because I felt like I had to represent the race.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just like, I'm the only Black person. I have to be on time to class. I have to get good grades. I have to do all the things. So there was a lot of pressure being the only Black person in my class. I didn't do well my first year of dental school. I did okay, but I would say it had nothing to do with how smart I was, how academically gifted I was, because I always did well in school. But dental school humbled me. And it humbled me because the rigor, the amount of work you have to do is to another level. And then when you don't have the same resources as the rest of your classmates, because they have study guides, they have old exams, they have all these things that's not being shared with me, it's a different level. And I would also say, I apologize. I would also say that on my end, I was studying by myself. I didn't build a tribe in dental school because I felt like people were so different than me. And it wasn't until I went back to Albany and I spoke to my counselor and I'm like, I hate everyone. I'm like, I hate everyone. They don't know what real life is. They don't know what real life is. They're so privileged.
Mm-hmm.
And he was like, look, you're not going to make it through dental school unless you make some friends. Look past their differences and find something that could connect you. So I would say that's definitely where my community building portion started. So after that, I have a group of friends. I still talk to them now. So eventually, I made it past first year. And after that, I had my tribe, right? I had a group of girls that I hung out with, and we studied together. And I did much better the rest of my career in dental school. And it was because I had to build that community, which is also something that I always, tell my mentees. But it wasn't until after I graduated that I realized how much I went through. Because I feel like when you're going through it, you just go through it and that's it. And you're like, I have to push through because I have to make it. I have to get out of this building, right? I have to graduate. I have to become a dentist. But it wasn't until after where I really realized all the microaggressions I was going through, certain comments. I'm like playing back comments my classmates would say, like, oh, yeah, well, the professor only knows your name because you're the only one. Or, oh, like your hair looks different today. What's that? Like, can I touch it? Like, and all these ridiculous things. And I would say one of the biggest things that impacted me, because I never felt like I experienced blatant racism. It was a lot of ignorance and a lot of microaggressions, especially when I'm so used to being around people in New York City, where you see and you're around a lot of different people, versus now I'm in dental school and there's people from all over the country. And, they're 20, 25 years old, some even older than me in their 30s. And they're just like, you're my first Black classmate.
Oh,
What?
wow.
Like, where are you from? You know what I mean? And it's just like, how am I your first Black classmate? Where I grew up, where it's like I have Asian classmates, Indian classmates, black, white, yellow, orange, green, like everybody, right? And then now it's like I'm your first Black classmate, and you 25 years old,
Wow. Wow. And
you
that's a lot of
know,
pressure too. Because
right?
now
Because I
you,
literally felt like I was representing the
you're it.
race.
Yeah. You are it.
I'm it. Like, oh, you're sassy. You're spicy, and it's just like, what you mean by that? You know, so and it's like because eventually I would start like coming out, you know, the Brooklyn would come out sometimes, and it was a very interesting experience, especially like going through DEI training, and you're the only Black person out of 100% people, and I'm sitting there like, y'all know y'all do this to me every day, right? And everyone's sitting there nodding, and I'm just like, bruh, it was an experience. It was an experience, and I would say one of the most impactful experiences was I was working with this professor, very well regarded, very well respected. Everyone would like line up to work with him, and I had my furrow that day. This man, the way he greeted me was, "Oh, did you stick your hand in an electrical socket?"
No.
Bruh, how do you even react to that? How do you even react to that? I looked at him, I walked away, and I proceeded to tell the director. I didn't tell him what he said, but I was like, oh, I would like to sign up with someone else today. Never worked with him again. And he was one of my favorite professors to work with. Never worked with him again. And I don't know if, like, at that point, that's when I was just like, I need to get the hell out of this place. Because it was a lot. And even so, like, the class above me only had 2 Black people. The class above that had 1 Black person. The class below me had 1 Black person. And we were each other's bigs and little. You know, when the next class came, I said, there's someone's Black? Okay, she's my little. Because I got to help her get through this. So it was a very interesting experience. But in all of that, not sleeping well, stress, eating a lot of gummy bears in lab, you know, a lot of Monster energy drinks. I gained maybe about 20 or so pounds in dental school. And then you go into residency. And even though I was in a much better environment, because I came to residency in New York City, I was in Bronx Care, where the director is Black, the head of the hospital Black, everybody Black and Latino. So I was like, wonderful, I'm great now. But it's still residency, right? You're still getting called at 2 o'clock in the morning because someone was drunk and bust their face on Grand Concourse, you know, and I have to go suture them now. And I'm like, I'm not plastics. Why am I doing this? Right? So stress of that. So am I still working out a few times a week? Yeah, but I'm eating like crap. I'm not sleeping. I'm stressed out. And then you just go years like that. You go years like that. And you don't even know that you're not happy. You don't even know that you're on autopilot.
Yeah.
So it wasn't until last year when I started going to therapy.
Okay.
And that's what just changed my life, because I'm like, mental health, like I'm good. Because I'm a resilient person, right? You know, from the hood in Brooklyn, we got that chip on our shoulder. Like, I'm good. I don't need nothing, right? But then actually, I'm not. I'm not good. There's a lot of trauma going on. Like, can we talk about what happened in dental school? Because I never talked about anything that happened in dental school with anybody.
Yeah.
Who am I going to talk to? My non-Black classmates?
You feel
So
isolating, like you're in a bubble.
I'm in a bubble. So I'm going through all of that myself. Then you go out into the field and stuff is still happening. And you're like, damn, I'm a dentist. But what's most important first is that I'm Black. I'm still Black. There's certain offices that don't want to hire me. Right.
Mm-hmm.
And going through that and just the stress of that and the boxes that they put us in, where it's like, oh, you'll be great in this Medicaid office. Oh, do you work in Harlem? And, you know, just those little comments where it's just like, what? Do I have to work in Harlem? Are those the only people who will hire me? And don't get me wrong, I love working with my people. I did work in Harlem, but it's like the assumption, right? Because I worked in Harlem in a PPO, fee-for-service office. I wasn't at a Medicaid office, but the assumption is that I'm a Medicaid office because I'm Black, right? Oh, you'd be great. You need to work with your people, right? When it's like, if we look at the numbers, who's the majority of people getting Medicaid? We're not going to get into that. Okay, so last year I started going to therapy, and that's when, you know, we started talking about my nutrition. In therapy, we were talking about my sleep patterns, how I don't sleep, and how that was hindering my fitness goals. Because even so, that's what I've really started to notice. Like, hey, you go to the gym 4 times a week and you do something. Like, what is going on? And I'm tall, so I carry my weight well, but it still affects your confidence. So it wasn't until I started working on my mental health that I realized why everything else wasn't working. So I was visiting endocrinologists, nutritionists. I was doing all the things just to try to get my health back together. And from July of 2023 to now, I've lost about 50 pounds.
Wow.
Yeah. And that was literally getting my mental health and my sleep together. So that's why wellness is so important to me. That is way more than physical, because I've always been consistent with the gym and nothing was happening until I started working on what are my stressors? How do I deal with my anxiety? Right? I see all these anxious people. I would say, oh yeah, that girl, she got anxiety. And then my therapist's like, you have anxiety. Me? I cope so well with things, right? But it's just because everyone's anxiety doesn't present the same way.
Exactly.
Right? So now managing that, managing my sleep. If you don't sleep well, nothing else you do matters.
Preach.
It doesn't matter if you're working out. It doesn't matter if you change your diet. If you're not sleeping, nothing's going to function properly. And what you're doing, how do you show up for your patients when you're not healthy, when you're not happy, and you don't even notice because you're on autopilot, right? So it wasn't until I started working on my mental health that I really say that catapulted my wellness journey. And then honestly, I just started talking about it on social media. And then all of a sudden now people are like asking me questions and all these things. And I was like, oh, okay. So I started focusing my content on that as well, because why am I going to keep this information to myself when I know that so many people could use it? And initially I spoke about diversity. I still speak about that as well. And, you know, the struggles that I went through in dental school and how I got through it. But honestly, I just pushed through it. Right now, I want to give people proper strategies on how do you get through those things in dental school and in your day-to-day career, and how can you really live an authentic, joyful life? Because dentistry is amazing. It affords me a great life, but it's not everything. Right? It's not everything. So we want to make sure that we don't let it consume us.
Mm-hmm.
And how can we add our extracurriculars back, our hobbies back? We had hobbies when we were kids, right? Yes. When my therapist asked me what I did for self-care, I Googled self-care. I don't know.
I've done that before too. Somebody was like, what do you do for self-care? I was like, what do people do for self-care?
Right.
I don't do none of this.
Right. I'm like, I don't do any of that. Right. When I'm like, well, I go to the chiropractor and physical therapist. She's like, that's because you have to. Like, that's not self-care. Right. So it's like really thinking about how that's so crazy. We don't even know how to take care of ourselves.
Right.
Self-care. We don't even know how to do that.
Yes. Yes.
Right. So now it's super important to be intentional about incorporating that. Right. One of the things that I also speak about is your why. What's your why? You function a certain way. I didn't make my why statement until this year.
Wow.
But I've always functioned in my why. Right. Because your why is authentic to you. Right? It's going to be why you do certain things, why you make certain decisions, why we went into certain fields, right? And everyone can have a different why, but we're in this field. So really sitting down, thinking about it and writing it down. Write down your core values, right? And then you can understand, okay, what are my core values? What are the core values of the practice that I'm in? Why don't we align? Why am I always bumping heads with the owner?
Yeah.
You may not match. That may not be the office for you, right? And that could be a great office for someone else because their core values align. We don't think about that. We're looking at the ads. We're like, how much they pay, right?
Yes.
We really need to think about what's the core values of the practice.
Mm-hmm.
Do we align? Because that's how you end up not being burnt out. We're burnt out because we go into practices, we don't like it, but well, okay, it pays good, so I'm a put a pretty face on and smile while I'm here. But every morning when my alarm goes off, I'm miserable. You're not living in your true self. You're not living in your purpose. So even in doing what we have to do, because we have to make money, right? We have to
Absolutely.
make money. We have to figure out how do we make what we do align with that,
Mm-hmm.
right? And for some people, it may not be their job, right? If you're at a certain job because you have to be, because you're doing loan forgiveness or whatever your circumstances are, you're the only breadwinner, you're the provider, so you're like, I can't just quit and figure out what I want to do, right? Then now we need to say, okay, how can you incorporate things in your outside life to align with your purpose, right? I could be in a job that I don't like, but I do mission work on the side. I do volunteer work on the side. So that gives me purpose, right? So that's my biggest thing is figuring out how do you live a well-rounded life outside of work, but work should also align with your purpose.
I love that. I love that. I love the passion with which you speak. I love how everything is so connected. You have to have your why. There has to be intentionality. You really have to do better at looking internally and reflecting inward. That is the biggest part of wellness. Like this, powerful, absolutely powerful. I am incredibly excited to hear you for a full hour at Dental Culture
Yes.
Con this February. Can you give a light sneak peek as to what somebody could expect to hear from you on that stage?
So the workshop that we're doing is going to focus on wellness and figuring out what routine can you make for yourself in your daily life, because a lot of the times I hear all the excuses, and don't get me wrong, I had the excuses as well. I'm tired, my back hurt, you know how many hours I got to work, I don't have time to eat, I don't have time to drink water, right? How many times at the end of the day your water bottle's still full?
All the time.
How many times at the end of the day you didn't realize that your bladder is up to the brink because you can't stop to you as you're working, you're like, okay, after this patient, I'm gonna go use the restroom. And then they're like, hey, next patient's ready. And then 4 or 5 hours go. That's not healthy, right? We're not drinking water, we're not using the bathroom, we're not eating. The majority of the food that we eat is at the end of the day, right?
Mhm.
So I want to give providers strategies to combat all of that. And then we are going to do some like physical activity when we're in there. Nothing too crazy. I don't want to scare you guys off. Nothing too crazy, right? But we are going to get moving, right? I like to interact with the audience, get people out of their chairs. I'm very much a dynamic speaker in the sense that I'm not going to stand there looking at the slides and pointing and just, no, we're not going to do that. We're going to have a good time. We're going to interact with each other. We're going to get to know each other. And I'm super excited to focus more on the physical and the mental part of our career. People were talking to me before I started dental school. Everyone was talking to me about the cost. Don't get me wrong, the cost is real. But no one spoke about the mental toll of being in dentistry. No one spoke about the physical toll of being in dentistry. When I tell you, my chiropractor gets paid well. When I first went to him, I had to go to him 3 times a week because that's how jacked up I was.
Yeah.
Chiropractic, massage therapist, physical therapy, acupuncture, and you're already paying for your gym membership.
Yep.
Then I got to pay a nutritionist to figure out why I can't lose no weight. Then I got to pay an endocrinologist because I'm like, something must be going wrong because I don't lose no weight. And all of it was just stress.
Yep.
I'm paying all these people to figure out what's wrong with me. And it was stress. You got to get your head right, right? So
yes,
that's what I'm going to be talking about. And this is for everyone. It's not just for dentists. It's for dentists, hygienists, assistant, front desk, everybody, humans. Wellness is important for everybody. Yes. Everybody needs it.
Oh, I love it. I love it. You are so inspiring. I've loved everything about our conversation. I'm going to transition us a little bit before we end into some rapid fire questions.
Oh, let's go.
Don't take it too, too seriously. We're just going to have a little bit of fun. But first one, you ready?
I'm ready.
If your life had a theme song, what would it be?
Ooh. Flawless by Beyonce.
Oh, why?
Why? Because that's just how you have to go into the room. That's how you have to enter a space. And despite all the nonsense that goes on in the world, because a lot of nonsense be going on, you still got to show up flawless and kill the room, kill the game, boss up. So I love that song.
I love that. What is one subscription you can't live without?
Ooh. That has to be my Amazon Prime. I always, every year, every time I get the bill, I'm like, I'm going to cancel it. But then I'm like, I can't. I literally order from Amazon maybe 2-3 times a week, if not more. Like, wow. I could go to the store and buy something, and I'm going to buy it on Amazon.
Wow.
Okay. Because I'm just like, oh, it comes to my door. It's easy.
Okay, I see it. Amazon Stan. I love it. Okay, what is the best piece of advice you've ever received?
Ooh. The best piece of advice I've ever received. I would say most recently in my journey of getting into social media and all of that, my coach was just like, just post, just do it, because you're not that big anyway, so no one gonna see it if you don't like it. Delete it if you don't like it. And I was like, yo, that's real. That's real, because I would stress out about a post, and not even the post, it would be the caption. I would stress out. And I wouldn't post because it's not perfect. I don't like the lighting. Oh, I stuttered a little bit. Oh, I don't have a caption yet. I don't have a cover photo. And it's just like, Emma, you're not that big. It don't matter. Facts. So now when I post, it's just like, okay, make a caption, post. And I'm like, oh, damn, I stuttered there. Okay, cool. I'm human. And so I would say that really helped me with not procrastinating and doing things. Like, it ain't that serious. You're not that big. Do what you got to do. And it's the funniest thing, because I say that to other people now. Like, other people who are like, oh, I don't know how to start. Try different things.
Right.
Try different things. If it doesn't work, it doesn't matter, because you're not that big.
Very humbling advice.
Yeah, for real. And I was like, and she's like, I don't mean this in a mean way, but she's like, it's just a reality. Like, if you don't like something, try it out for a month. You don't like doing it? Okay, then next. Right? Who's going to say, oh, well, No one cares. Like, just do it.
I love that.
Stop giving yourself excuses.
I love that. Fabulous. I had such a great time with you. How can people connect with you? How can they follow you so you could be a little bigger, so that you're not that big category anymore?
So in terms of my social media, I'm very, very heavy on Instagram. So that's _doctor. So DR Emma, EMMA. That's where you're going to get the most content from me. On Facebook, Dr. Emma Guzman. I'm on LinkedIn too, Dr. Emma Guzman. You can find me in all those places. My website is dremmaguzman.com. So if you know my name, you can find me. Okay. But like I said, I'm most active on Instagram. DM me, hit me up. I actually respond to people because, I'm not that big. So I actually respond to people, and I love building community and connecting with others. I have a wellness series going on right now. So a lot of people have been connecting with me through there. We do monthly sessions about different topics in wellness. The one that I have coming up this month is on mental health. So that'll be a dope one. So definitely check that out.
Oh, that's awesome. Okay. I am super excited to see you in person in
Yes.
Miami in
We're going to be in
February.
Miami. We're going to be
It's
good.
gonna be
Yes, I love it.
exciting. We're gonna have a great time. Thank you
Yes.
so much for joining me today. I appreciate you. I love your passion. You just reverberate a passion, and I think that everybody's gonna benefit from it. But
Thank
thank you so
you.
much for being with me, and I look forward to seeing you in February.
Yes, I'll see you guys in February 7th.